Hey, welcome back to another edition of the Friday Show. This week brought to you by Uptowncharlybrown Stud, who stands in Pennsylvania. But there's a lot more to Uptowncharlybrown Stud than just the stallion. They've got partnerships that are really unique. Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, for $1,000, you can get an all-inclusive membership into the Uptowncharlybrown Stud Racing Program. The lucrative Pennsylvania program, we know all about that. You can get some good stuff here. Successful horses like Midtown Charlie Brown, Wait For It, who just recently won the Paige McKinney Stakes at Parks. They got good horses. You can get in for a relatively low buy-in. It's worth looking into.
All right. Well, thanks for Joe. Joe Nevills, our bloodstock editor. We're going to talk a little bit about Florida this week. I know there's been a lot of other stuff in the news. We're not going to touch that. It's been talked about. The Preakness, the run up to the Preakness, and all that. Florida is really facing some changing times in the gambling area. This week, the Senate and the House passed several bills that affect the future of racing and gambling in Florida. The first thing was a compact with the Seminole Tribe was approved by the legislature. This is a compact that the governor negotiated. It has to be approved by the federal government, but that probably will happen. This gives the Seminoles a monopoly on sports betting. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. The second thing is decoupling of racing and card rooms and casinos at everything except thoroughbred tracks. So Gulfstream Park and Tampa Bay Downs are exempt from this, but every other track in the state and Hialeah Fronton in the state can close but keep their card rooms and their casinos open. Now, and then the third thing was they're going to create a gaming commission, which will give the governor a chance to do some political favors for friends, I'm sure.
I mean,
so Joe, you go to Florida quite a bit. What is it, what is it you're going to miss the most about the gambling options that we used to have between dog racing, which is already gone, thoroughbred racing, harness racing, and highlight?
So every year just about every year I go down for the Fasig-Tipton Gulfstream sale to Southern Florida, and I try very hard to get my sale recap done in time to make the late matinee at the Dania Beach Jai Alai. And this absolutely destroys me. I love Jai Alai. I'm terrible at betting it, but I love just watching it. I love the athleticism of it. I love the ambiance, and to see that threatened really upsets me. I mean, there are other things, of course, I think a lot of people's answers would be Hialeah Park is suddenly in danger. They're not a thoroughbred venue anymore. They're racing, galloping quarter horses or mules or whatever they're doing now. It's not a thoroughbred track.
Right.
And you have to wonder what the future is going to look like for a vaunted historical place like Hialeah Park now that they're not, necessarily married to the casino part of it anymore.
Yeah, Hialeah, I was there, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, and surprisingly, the grandstand and all of that is in pretty good shape. The late John Bernetti put some money into it. I think maybe he thought that he was going to get racing back. They did have legitimate quarter horse racing for a short time that was sanctioned by the Florida Quarter Horse Association. But then when some of these other operations in the state of Florida got away with having match races, or not even match races, just two horses trotting down a dirt path or walking down a dirt path. And the state actually said, yes, that's a legitimate horse race. So Hialeah said, well, we can just start doing that. We can do the same thing that they're doing up at my favorite northern Florida track, Oxford Downs, which is a joke. But this is the state that got hoodwinked by these guys that started doing barrel racing for pari-mutuel wagering. And I don't know. I mean, getting back to Hialeah, it's such a beautiful place, and it's really not in that bad a shape. With the closing of Calder, Gulfstream Park West, a lot of people are hoping that somehow the owners of Gulfstream Park can strike a deal with Hialeah. Of course, Hialeah would need to get a permit for thoroughbred racing. Right now, they just have a quarter horse racing permit. But it would really be nice to get some racing back to Hialeah. And it's to have 52 weeks of racing at Gulfstream Park is really going to wear that place out.
Yeah, the turf surface is already taking an absolute beating, even with the previous break that they had at Calder or Gulfstream Park West, whatever you would like to call it. So having having a year-round circuit on that turf course would be legitimately dangerous. It's, turf courses aren't meant to take that kind of beating. I know that they are, potentially working on installing a Tapeta course, which would be fantastic for a lot of different reasons, but it's just, you got to have somewhere else to go. It's really tough to run a year-round circuit on the same surface and not give it time to kind of, take a breath. You need that.
Yeah.
But before you go on,
yeah.
we kind of glossed over something that I need you to tell me more stories about. Oxford Downs. Okay. I know that followers of the Paulick Report website, longtime followers, are probably familiar with Ray's adventures at Oxford Downs. But for people who are new to the program here, can you tell us a little bit about this sort of air quotes racetrack and your experiences there?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell it in a way that you'd believe it. But they built a little dirt oval, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile total, and it had a stand for the stewards to climb up a ladder and look at the 100-yard match races. They had a little stable area where they had a dozen horses or whatever, and they would come out every 10 minutes or every 7 minutes and run match races where the horses didn't even get into a gallop. They just broke from the starting gate and trotted, and the race was over. And it just boggled my mind that the state of Florida would actually say, yeah, this is legitimate horse racing. The day I was there, it was probably 100 degrees and humid. And I said, is there any place here? Do you have a clubhouse or anything? And the guy pointed, he says, that's our clubhouse up there at the top of the hill. And it looked like a little shed that you'd get at Home Depot or something. And
classy establishment.
Yeah. I said, so that's really a clubhouse? And he says, yeah, that's what the requirement was. We needed to have a clubhouse, and that's it. And so I said, well, can I go to the clubhouse? And they said, sure. So I went up there, and it was an office. It was like, it had like papers for, stuff they needed to do to fit the definition of live racing. And I was allowed to be in there about 3 minutes before they threw me out. I asked for water, and they said they didn't have any. I mean, it was 100 degrees. I swear I almost passed out. I mean, it was, the handle per race was probably $3, maybe $4. If, the people that were running the show would bet every race just to make sure that there was some handle. I mean, it's just, you can't believe that the state of Florida allowed this to go on. And this happened at multiple places. It wasn't just Oxford.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't been to this place, but there was a highlight fronton where, you saw semi-legitimate highlight at Dania, but there was a highlight fronton, I think it was north of Ocala, that someone explained to me was basically just a couple of college kids bouncing a tennis ball back and forth. And they were allowed to operate a card room, and that's the whole purpose of these tracks. It was to give them an opportunity to get a license for a card room and for a simulcasting parlor. And they were hoping that they'd get casinos, but then that was defeated in a statewide vote.
If I understood the story that you wrote on the PaulickReport.com website correctly, they still get to keep their card rooms and simulcasting, right?
Yeah,
the faux Hialeah, faux horse racing, right. Like they're kind of in now.
Right.
They're
in, and Calder, Churchill Downs Inc. owns Calder, gets to keep their casino, even though now that they've actually attached their casino to a Hialeah license, and they've been offering Hialeah the last couple of years. Now with this new law, they'll be able to do away with Hialeah and just keep their casino. The one thing that's really going to hurt horse racing is, since Gulfstream Park started leasing Calder from Churchill Downs and renamed it Gulfstream Park West, they've been getting the purse money from the Calder Casino. That contract, which is worth, I think, up to $9 million a year for purse money, that contract is ending at the end of July. So that's a big hunk of money to take out of the annual purse program.
Oh yeah,
for Gulfstream Park.
And again, going back to the fact that it's a 52-week meet at Gulfstream Park, like, it's money that would be spread out over the course of a season, and
Right.
you get 2 weeks to kind of rest that, where you're not putting it into purse money. It's just there are a lot of moving parts here that are kind of concerning. One of the big ones that kind of concerns me is this long term. I think it was a $500 million pact with the Seminole Indians.
Yeah.
So part of again in the story I read that the tribe could potentially be building a casino in Miami-Dade County that would be a direct competitor to Gulfstream Park. That wouldn't necessarily be on reservation land or land that normally wouldn't be considered under a pact. I can tell you from experience on this that in Michigan, the Native American tribes, or especially their lobbyists, destroyed racing in the state. Just absolutely, they threw millions of lobbying dollars into making sure that racetracks could not expand. And I can tell you from experience that when the tribal lobby is a opponent of yours, it's really hard to win or even survive there. So that really concerns me about sort of the long-term safety of racing in Florida. Like, obviously the Stronach Group has much deeper pockets than the Michigan racing organizations, but that's still going to be a fight that is hard to win.
Well, with each expansion of gambling that doesn't benefit Gulfstream Park, they're put at a stronger disadvantage.
Yeah.
A mile up the road is the old Hollywood dog track, which is now a casino called the Big Easy. When voters of Florida eliminated dog racing, the track was happy with that, because dog racing was an expense. It was not just the property, but the employees they had to hire, and it was a money-losing venture. They don't have to do that anymore. So now their profits are higher. They could put more into player development, more into marketing, and Gulfstream doesn't have that. Gulfstream is at a huge disadvantage against the Seminoles in terms of the tax on slot machines. I think it's almost 3 times as high on Gulfstream slots as it is on the Seminoles. And the Seminoles already have that huge Hard Rock casino, the one with this big, the hotel that looks like a guitar.
Yep.
Apparently they have the right now to build 3 more casinos on that property and make it like a little mini Vegas Strip.
Oh, wow.
And and they get a monopoly on sports betting. So there's so many things that the governor and the legislature have handed over to the Seminoles and done really nothing for horse racing. And it's a shame, because horse racing has been a huge part of Florida's history.
The government not doing anything for horse racing. Boy, I feel like I'm hearing this song an awful lot in an awful lot of different places. Yeah.
And, it's just a warning to other states. I saw a story earlier this week that Pennsylvania Governor Wolf, who's trying to take money out of racing from the casinos, that it says it's a long shot for him to be able to do that this year. But they're going to keep trying. This thing with decoupling was finally passed, but it's been tried 2 or 3 times before, and each time it got a little bit closer. And I feel the same thing could happen in Pennsylvania and New York and other states that are dependent on this revenue. In Florida, the money from slots at Calder Casino and Gulfstream equate to about 20% of purses. It's a lot higher in some other states.
Absolutely. And it's just a matter of being able to outrun the bear. For the Florida tracks, the bear has gotten a pretty big target that's close to them, and that's, eventually the bear is going to come after you.
Yeah. So, Joe, if you want to go back and see any highlight, I think you're going to have to hurry.
Oh boy.
I will tell you this: Pompano Park, I understand, which is also going to be decoupled and will be closing. Apparently, Joe Morris, the vice president of racing and who's got a lot of friends in the thoroughbred industry, apparently he said they will run 1 more year there. So we'll get a chance to go to the harness races next winter down in Florida.
And they're off.
This episode of The Friday Show is brought to you by Uptowncharlybrown Stud, America's #1 affordable racing partnership. Thought you couldn't afford it? Think again. For just $1,000, you can buy a 1% interest in a promising 2-year-old in the lucrative Pennsylvania program where the sky's the limit. So what are you waiting for? Check us out on the web at utcbstud.com or call 732-766-4507 today. Uptown Charlie Brown Stud.
All right, well, thanks to Uptowncharlybrown Stud for that sponsorship. And now it's time for the star of the week, and I have no idea who this might be.
Midnight Bourbon on the outside to Medina Spirit. Midnight Bourbon, Medina Spirit is fighting back on the inside. They're shoulder to shoulder. And on the outside, Ronbauer is ready to roll too. 3 chances, furlong and a half left to go. And here comes Ronbauer on the outside. Ronbauer's gone by. Midnight Bourbon, Medina Spirit's back in third and painting. A 16th of a mile left to go. Ronbauer and Flavien Prat, they're rolling home. Ronbauer to win by 3.
Well, Ronbauer was a long shot winner of the Preakness. I did not hear a lot of cheering in the press box at Pimlico, but when the race was over, I heard a lot of sighs of relief, and people were very happy with the outcome, even if they didn't cash a ticket. Ronbauer was a really feel-good story that racing needed on Preakness Day.
And boy, heck of a call by Dave Rodman there too. He was getting into that one. I enjoyed that. I hadn't gotten a chance to listen back to the track feed of that call yet, so I was listening along to that and just like, wow, he's really nailing this. But, Ronbauer is a heck of a story. I honestly didn't think he had it in him, coming in off of I believe he ran third in the Bluegrass Stakes, which obviously he ran a third against a couple of good horses in front of him. But I didn't know that he had it in him to jump up like this. But you got to be happy with the story. Homebred for a small homebred program that have a couple of brood mares. And when you have that kind of program, this is the dream. This is exactly what you're going for. So you'll love to see it.
There were some really refreshing things about it too. I thought it was great that Michael McCarthy, the trainer, and John Fratkin, who co-owns Ronbauer with his wife Diane, that they didn't always get along. They disagreed on things. Michael wanted to run in the Kentucky Derby. He wanted to run in the Robert Lewis earlier. And John Fratkin said, no, we're going to go up to Golden Gate Fields and get an easier spot. We'll get into the Preakness. And then he said, no, I don't want to go in the Derby because it's a tough spot. I think we can win the Preakness. And he was right. So it's refreshing to have people say they actually had some heated exchanges over things, because there's just too much of this sugar-coated stuff in racing. And I loved that part of it, actually.
Well, every good racing movie has that one pivotal scene where the owner and trainer sort of get into a dust-up over the direction of the horse. So someday when we get the Ronbauer story coming to a theater near you, this will all be important plot points that we're experiencing right now, and I'm completely fine with it. One thing that's go ahead.
Well, we had Flavien Prat, who won the Kentucky Derby a couple of years ago on disqualification, who finally, I think, got some recognition from what people on the West Coast have known, and that he's a very, very talented rider. This is a great opportunity for him to show it. And I'm very happy for him, but he's got an interesting future for the next couple of weeks before the Belmont Stakes.
Yeah, that's reported recently that he'll be riding Hot Rod Charlie in the Belmont, not instead of Ronbauer. So making kind of a high-profile change here, which isn't necessarily a winning or losing move here, but one of the most recent one of the most notable ones in recent memory. Calvin Burrell took off Mind That Bird after winning the Kentucky Derby to ride Rachel Alexandra in the Preakness in 2009, and that worked out for him.
Well, my understanding of this was not a case of Flavien and his agent Brad Pegram sitting down and handicapping the two horses and saying which one is better. I think they committed to Hot Rod Charlie for the Belmont Stakes, and it's refreshing that someone keeps their word and is going to follow through on that commitment. So I think that's how he ended up choosing Hot Rod Charlie. They made the commitment before the Preakness, and they're going to keep it. And
it's the kind of move that it makes sense. It looks good to stay on a horse that just won a Triple Crown race, but it's not like he's moving to some cheap horse that's suddenly, taking a shot with the Belmont. Hot Rod Charlie is a very good horse. He ran third in the Kentucky Derby. He's got a good mount no matter which horse he picks, and that's the kind of situation you want to be with a jock, and especially with a jock's agent.
Yeah, and I don't think Michael McCarthy is going to have a hard time rounding up a top quality jockey to ride Ronbauer. So that's good news for whatever jockey ends up getting that mount as well. So, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next week.